Hello. So in this video, we are going to make it so that the aliens in Space Invaders keep moving down on the screen. That way they are approaching, invading the Earth, kind of in this game, which creates another scenario for the player to lose. So we're going to extend what you lose could mean, making the game a little bit more challenging. Um, so we are going to start by getting those aliens to move. Now, we could very simply which I'm not going to do this, but we could very simply in spawn aliens just add a move component to them. That way they would just continuously drift down. But I would like to try to recreate that motion that you get from the classic Space Invaders game, where the whole group of aliens kinds of shifts back and forth. So as one of them hits the wall, then the whole group kind of shifts down and they go over and they kind of shift down like that. Um, so I'm going to try to recreate that. So we basically need to make some motion happen with it. But then that motion needs to change. It needs to bounce back and forth on the walls, sometimes move down. So it turns out the best place to do this is right inside of that on update function for the aliens. Because this is a place where we can do something with each and every alien, because we've been doing that with bombs. Like, we have this variable called A, so that's exactly the same place we want to be. So the first thing is I am just going to get them to kind of all drift to the right. Always take this step by step. So can I get them to move at all? So in this place, I want to say the move function, but I need a variable in front of it, and I have A, so I can say A dot move. Then that's a function, so I need to give it, I'm going to give it like an x value and a y value. So something like 200 comma 0, because I just want them to move to the right to begin with. Let's see what that does. Okay, so I get the aliens to move off to the right there. Now I want to make them bounce. So sometimes they need to move to the right, but sometimes they need to move to the left. So that's where an if statement comes in. So if, just say 3 greater than 2, in those parentheses, a curly brace, that was just a typo. So this is all you should have. If parens, and then 3 greater than 2, we'll figure that out. Curly braces. All right, so if they bounce off the wall, then start moving to the left. I'm not just going to say move left. So I think we need a variable here. Yeah, this number right here, I'm hard coding it to say, should I move to the left? Should I move to the right? Or should I move to the right 200? Let's use a variable. That way that can change. So the place I should make the variable is outside of this function. So I'm going to say let, let's call it alien vel for like the velocity, because it does tell us left or right, equals, and then I'll say 200, just keep it the same. So now I'm going to replace this 200 with that variable, alien vel. That way it's at least possible that it changes. And then inside that if statement, that's where I might say alien vel, and should be negative now. So I could either say equals negative alien vel, or I could also do something like this. Multiply by -1. That's going to flip the sign. So this should work. So now I have the rule that still always says move in the x component according to this velocity and nothing in the y. So that's always true. But then this if statement might decide to flip it. All right, so why would it flip? Because it hit the wall, so we have to describe that. Let's start with the right wall. So a dot pause gives us the position of the alien, but specifically we're only interested in the x position. So whether that is greater than the edge of the screen, which is width parens, that tells us the width of the game. Yeah, so if it does that, then they should bounce. So see, okay, I kind of saw them bounce off the right. Now they're drifting forever to the left, but that's working. So I could copy and paste here. Let's see how this works out. Now I want to do the left wall. So I copy and paste it like that. Another if statement. But now if alien.pos.x is less than, if it got too small, if it was less than 0, then alien_vel times equals -1. That's still true. I just want it to invert. So let's see what happens there. Yeah, there they go. They're bouncing back and forth. And I think they're kind of like all over the place a little bit, but I'm pretty far zoomed in. So I'm trying to see if maybe it has to do with, I have an idea. I think this would just get fixed in the next thing. All right, now just looking at this here, I have two if statements. That's perfectly acceptable. It probably makes sense, usually when you have if statements that you have an actual chain of them. So if, else if, maybe there's an else if there's a no matter what. So I think this is more proper for us to say if, else if, because it's kind of like two completely separate situations. It worked just fine the other way though. But this kind of tells me, reading the code, that these things are kind of connected together. It's an if, else if chain, whereas the next if, and if is always the first word in one of those chains, has to do with something else. And it does. It's for dropping the bombs. So the code just looks better to me now. Technically, what it changes is that this does connect them together. So if this is true, it's not even going to bother with the next one. So logically, that's fine because it's either bouncing off the right or the left. So there's no worries there. That's what it does. Whereas two ifs will still check both no matter what. Okay. I'm hoping that if I get them to do the shift down thing, that's going to start to fix the weird behavior that was going on there. So if they hit the wall, I also want it to move down. So let's say a dot move. Go ahead and move again in that new direction. Now that I've flipped it, go ahead and move alien_vel, comma. But instead of 0, maybe like 100 or something. Move a little bit in the Y direction. So that's, maybe that'll look better for the right side. It's a little hard to tell. And one thing I noticed first is that the shifting down, it looks really weird, is only applying to that alien. I actually want them all to come down. If some alien collided with the wall, change what alien velocity is to go the other direction. But don't just move this one alien. That's what I'm coding right now. I want to move them all. So fortunately, Kaboom has a function that's very helpful for this. It's called every. So it lets me take everything that has a certain tag and then do something with it. It's kind of like on update. Um, so I think I'm going to want to put that code in like an every. So what if I try every function? Two parameters. The first one is a string for the tag, and then the second one is the function for what happens. So quotes alien, so for every alien, and then comma for the next parameter, an arrow function, parens, arrow, curly braces. Now, do I want to catch each of those aliens? Well, yes, I do. Um, I think I could use A just exactly the way things work, but might not. It might make things a little clearer if I say like A2, um, which makes it different from this one alien we're doing all the wall collision with. Now this is like every alien. So I'm going to take this code where I said, hey, alien move, and I'm going to swap it in for that new variable, A2. Because this is every single alien. Like when this code is finished, all of them have moved down. Let's see, it maybe it looks better. So let's see if I put that in the left wall bounce. That really does make things look nice. So if it hit the left wall, then for every alien, move in that new direction, but also shift down a little bit. Yeah, let's see. I think it's too fast. It had more of the motion I was going for, but it does seem pretty fast. And I'm zoomed in very far, so that's more what I was looking for. But man, does it really gets out of control later. All right. Yeah, this alien velocity at 200, that is too big. Let's change this to like 10, honestly. Um, so it's nice that I can just change this number here because I've used the variable name so many times. And the important thing to notice here is how I made the variable before the onUpdate function, because this onUpdate function, well, that callback happens a lot for every alien 60 times per second. So I definitely don't want to say this equals positive 10 all the time. I wanted this to change. So it was important to define it before the function. All right, so let's see if setting that to a much smaller number makes things feel a little bit better. They are creeping along. But it gives you some time, you could tweak this number. Okay, but they hit, yeah, they kind of shifted. I think that looks pretty good. I think an improvement on this would be in spawn aliens. Oh, I actually did change this number already. I was playing with this earlier. So this would be a good change to make. That in spawn aliens, let x equal 100. You have 0, but change this to 100. That way it's that first alien is spaced off to the side a little bit, has some room to do that bouncing. So that also means that this, like moving on to the next line, um, should be something more like this. So instead of just saying x greater than width parens, it should say x plus 125 or something like that. That way it's going to move to the next row sooner. Oh, and this is the part I missed. So then what should happen? Well, y should increase. That's good. But x then needs to be 100 again, not 1,000. Yeah. I think that's why mine weren't in quite the right shape. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to make that speed bigger than 10. But that is the motion I was looking for. Just a shift, and then they kind of move down. So when I said let alien val equal 10, maybe 20 is actually better. And maybe this could be more like 200, because this only actually happens for a very small moment. This move only occurs when that if statement is true, which is for just a little bit of time. So it'd be safe to change these to 200, I think. Yeah, that feels pretty good. All right, well, we got them moving, so I'm going to start to attach this to hitting the bottom of the screen and touching the player.